Welcome back to another question from the Old Testament. Our question today comes from the Old Testament prophet Jonah. In Jonah chapter 4 and verse 11, God asked Jonah the question, "And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city?" To give our question context, we're going to read chapter 4 of the book of Jonah, verses 1 through 11. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. And he prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee to Tarshish, for I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, and relenting from disaster. Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." And the Lord said, "Do you do well to be angry?" Jonah went out of the city and sat to the east of the city and made a booth for himself there. He sat under it in the shade till he should see what would become of the city. Now the Lord God appointed a plant and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be a shade over his head, to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was exceedingly glad because of the plant. But when dawn came up the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the plant, so that it withered. When the sun rose, God appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah, so that he was faint. And he asked that he might die, and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." But God said to Jonah, "Do you do well to be angry for the plant?" And he said, "Yes, I do well to be angry, angry enough to die." And the Lord said, "You pity the plant for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow, which came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city, in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle?" As a child, I had many of the same fears as other children. Fear of the dark, fear of monsters under the bed, fear of old people. Oh, where did that one come from? As I've gotten older, my fears of many of the childhood varieties have left me, even the fear of old people, now that I are one. Pardon the grammar. But there is a monster that rears its ugly head that scares me even more than those of my youth. It is the me monster. You know, that monster that walks alongside us each and every day? That monster that crushes all others around us and makes us number one. What? You don't fear the me monster? That great fish that swallowed Jonah was frightful for sure. But the monster that Jonah wasn't even aware of was the very same me monster that you and I face in our lives today. What does the me monster look like? Well, let's take a gander. The me monster feeds on our ego and puts us at the center of interests, conversations, activities, the world, yes, even the universe. The more the me monster is allowed to consume us, the less room there is for anyone else. In short, it's all about me. There's also a sense in which the me monster exists in culture, company, and country. Now, don't get me wrong, it's okay to like your culture and your company and your country. The problem comes when "we are the only one" attitude dominates. That pesky me monster roars again. From the outset, Jonah wasn't afraid to go to Nineveh. He makes that very plain in verse 2 when we read, "O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That's why I made haste to flee to Tarshish, for I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, and relenting from disaster." Jonah didn't fear the Ninevites or failure. Jonah feared, yes, even hated, the prospect of success. Now, isn't that a strange attitude for a preacher? God proceeds to give Jonah an object lesson in the form of a plant, a worm, and a scorching wind from the east. In these, God hopes to give Jonah the perspective he lacks in seeing his capabilities of mercy even upon the enemies of Israel. But again, the me monster stands in Jonah's way. We may wonder whatever became of Jonah after this. What kind of reception did he get when he returned home? Did people say, "You went where?" and said what? To who? We are left with that haunting question. For you who like trivia, this is the only book in the Bible that ends with a question. The question is as relevant 7 centuries before Christ as it is now nearly 2,000 years after Christ walked the Galilean shore. When you think of it, Jesus addressed that same brazen attitude of the me monsters in the first century when a lawyer stood up to test him and asked the question, "And who is my neighbor?" in Luke 10:29. Jesus proceeds to describe how a Samaritan struck a fatal blow to his me monster when he stopped and helped a man on that treacherous Jericho road. Now, we don't know what happened to Jonah, and I'm glad we don't, because that might take the focus off that question that looms ominously over us when we consider the Great Commission of taking the gospel to the whole world. And I wonder how many little ones out there today don't know their right hand from their left, but await the mercy of God. And I wonder if that me monster is holding us back. And Lord willing, let's meet again tomorrow and look at another question from the Old Testament.